I can tell you everybody cares about user onboarding. It's like the universal term. You find a SaaS company, you bet they are gonna care about activation. They poured their like thousands of marketing dollars into getting this person. You surely want to make sure they start paying.
Jane, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Jane, why don't we kick it off for the people who already don't know you? Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and your experience?
Sure, I'll try to fit this in a nutshell. At the moment, and over the last 7 years, me and my co-founder Benedict have been running a software platform. It's an email marketing tool called Userlist. That's like my primary thing these days. As far as the background goes, I'm actually a UI UX designer by trade. So the previous 10 years with a little overlap, I've been working as a solo consultant and helping other SaaS companies have great UI UX. Always hanging around among founders, always aspiring to be a founder. And here we go. All the problems, all the adventures are ours these days.
Perfect. Let's start from there, actually. UI and UX, why does it matter for SaaS companies? What is it about, and what are the common mistakes that either founders or companies make when thinking about these topics?
My understanding of design has evolved over the years as I started to more and more realize the role of design in like everyday founder in business life. And I've really grown to be more humble. I don't think design makes or breaks the business, but it's definitely a nice advantage that platforms can have. My favorite type of design client in the old days was a running software company that does not have great design, which means they have great marketing, great product, and great sales, strong enough to make money without being superbly polished. In some industries, I would say if you're a well-funded startup and you're putting together a platform that is funded and aims to really grasp the market, good design is a must-have these days, but also there are so many niche tools that make it without it. By great design, I do mean great polish. There are definitely shortcuts one can take, their templates. I don't want to even go into like AI designing stuff for us. That's probably going to be also pretty affordable these days. So there are many ways to do this. And I guess every founder is crafting their own path. Largely speaking, design is a small fraction of time. Like in our own business, development takes much more time than design. So I still do like product design, web design for us, but it just takes fraction of other things I do, which is sales and marketing primarily.
I see. Do you believe that user needs has evolved in time when we talk about user experience and design? Do you feel that people are now more demanding when it comes to their experience and also their adoption according to how easy or how fluent their experience is?
I guess it depends on the audience we're talking about. For example, we are serving software marketers. That's a pretty seasoned audience. Of course, the demands are high, but there are many niche audiences around the world of, brick and mortar kind of businesses. Maybe they're not as demanding at all. And also they just want to have their thing done. And maybe they don't even have high feature requirements. I feel like being in this epicenter of technology is hard because there is high competition, but on the periphery, when IT companies are serving brick and mortar industries, there's a lot of untapped potential and the audiences are not as demanding. But it's of course nice to see folks using their phones and computers more. So it's just easier because everybody's speaking the same language of patterns and UX a bit more than they used to 20 years ago. So I guess we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Is there a way for companies or people to assess if their UI and UX is working, or if there are some gaps or room for improvement?
Funny that you ask, because one of my books is called The UI Audit. So when I published that 10 years ago, I claimed that, of course, you can. You need to make sure it fits the goals, fits the jobs to be done. You have like clarity on the page, all that jazz. I would say these days, you're doing fine unless users are actively complaining or actively leaving, or you're just like, basically, if you have a trouble, people will be vocal about it. So start thinking from there. And depends on the type of the founder. For example, I'm a design founder. Of course, I have higher design standards than others because it's important for me to work on something that's aesthetically pleasant. It's just like a higher baseline. But that's not the same for everybody. They're perfectly fine companies with lower design expectations. They're also doing fine. So it's a spectrum.
I see. What's the connection between UI, UX and emails and marketing? How did you shift from one domain to the other, and what was it like?
Userlist was my second attempt at being a SaaS founder. And the first one was like a vitamin productivity tool that did not have a clear audience. It was a form builder with some reminders on it called Tiny Reminder. Did not go anywhere. And for the next business, I was like, well, let's go solve some hardcore business problem with high retention. It's going to be closer to sales, closer to how people convert. And at that time, it felt like there was a niche. Intercom was the only tool I was aware of that was doing behavior-based emails for SaaS. So we just jumped on it. And Benedict, my co-founder, he was helping me to build that first product. So we already had a little bit of experience working together. That's how we met.
I see. So you already touched base about behavior, and we'll get back to that. But before doing so, what's the current gap in the market that you're tackling, and how do you believe you're solving it?
There is no gap anymore. It's a pretty competitive industry.
Mhm.
And we're still not 100% positive how what our unique edge is, but we found to be pretty successful in this niche of SaaS email marketing automation. So with the word SaaS attached, which makes us different from like the general purpose email automation tools. It allows us to talk to the audience more in a more clear way, offer just the right amount of features, not too much, not too little, to make it super powerful for SaaS users, but not no other extra bells and whistles that you may unnecessarily have if you went with like MailChimps of the world.
Mhm.
So we trying to strike a balance there. But it's not a gap. There are definitely a couple of competitors that are very like we're in a neck to neck battle, and it's hard, and we're still in search of that unique angle. I would say so. It might be that we have found it, and we are definitely getting better every year on knowing our customers. But it took a few years. Definitely did.
I can imagine. And it's a long journey, or maybe even a never ending journey to pivot and to adapt to customers' need. And I think you said something interesting. What's the difference between email marketing needs of a SaaS company versus a more generic business?
Great that you asked. SaaS email marketing automation is a very complex and technical type of email marketing because as product owners, you get much more information about the user and their behavior that, e-commerce, let's take e-commerce. You sell the product, you pray, you're done. Sure, you can operate some dates and maybe website views or something if you're lucky, but that's all. When with SaaS, when someone creates an account in your system, you have the ability to see like how many projects they have in your tool, like what features they're using, how often, how much. And there is no limit to tracking this. When we were starting out, I was like, let's just help people get their data in. And from there, we can help. Did not know how much effort actually takes to get that data in because it does require planning and it does require a couple hours engineering work. It's definitely not rocket science, definitely doable, and we have libraries and such, and we help folks develop their tracking plans, and all in all, it's doable. It's just not a one-click setup that you would expect. So we are very much in the B2B camp where we need to really hands-on help every new customer.
Mhm. In that case, let's say if a new company or a SaaS player comes to the market and they want to start taking seriously email marketing, what are the initial steps or the key foundations that they should understand in order to have the foundation to build a strong email marketing process?
My favorite one is the Gauss law, which says that a complex system may only evolve from a simple system. So our observation is you most likely will stumble through the first 2 or 3 years of your founder journey without the need of advanced email marketing. You'll probably use a generic cheap tool like MailChimp or such to send a handful of onboarding emails, and you'll be fine, because that's when you're still learning. You still don't know like what exact message you want to send at scale, what people need to know, and so and so. So usually, it doesn't mean that you don't need an email marketing tool. It doesn't mean that if you come to us, we will reject. It's just that advanced email marketing automation that we are preaching is mostly a good fit for like 2+ years in, version 2.0 kind of your email marketing, when you are, for example, revamping your user onboarding and you want to do some awesome things, but your current tool is really limiting you. That's when people start shopping for a new tool, and that's when we can come into play. So it's usually not the zero startup, but more like someone who's ready for more sophisticated things.
And you mentioned roughly this 2-year time span. But what happens in these 2 years? Is it about the growth of the company? Is it about the evolution of their processes, or about their revenue? What does it change in a company so that they can shift from a simple email sequencing tool, vendor, and process to something more advanced? What's happening in between there?
If you're listening, if you've been in a company for the first 2 years, you know that it's there are many options, but generally speaking, companies just stumble through the very painful years of finding their voice and understanding what they do and building their MVP and just getting their first 10 to 50 customers. That's hard, and that's usually done through high touch channels such as sales, outreach, whatever you can do. 2 years, totally from the top of my head. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's, I don't know, sometimes it's 10. Really depends on the business, because email is not a magic bullet. It's not going to 2x your conversions if when you do it. Therefore, as a founder, you're tackling different areas of your business. You see where low hanging fruit is. And then eventually you cycle back to your email marketing fundamentals and you're like, oh, I could do better. I have much to say. And that's when we can come in and help. Also worth saying that email is a channel. It's a channel. It's not a silver bullet in itself. Therefore, you need to have a clear positioning. You need to know what you want to say, how you want to say it. And it definitely helps if you have built up some sort of content library over years that could take different form and shape. Could be, I don't know, good videos, could be a great blog, could be just help docs. Because when we do take up, for example, done for you projects, we usually just gather all these materials, and that's what you put in your emails. You don't just craft emails out of thin air. It needs to have some material behind it.
Yeah. When you talked about understanding the performance, what are the metrics that companies in this stage should measure? Is it engagement? Is it something different? And how do they understand that they have room for improvement in order to get to the next level?
It always helps just to gauge, opens, clicks in your emails. That's the basics, and that's what. And unless you're really, really advanced, like we do have features for measuring conversion goals, for example, but that's like phase 2, when people have their emails have been running for a while and they're ready to understand and measure that. Just doing what you feel is best and making sure it's up to date, I would say, is more important than fixating over specific numbers. Of course, you should strive for some sort of healthy open rates. I don't know, 30, 40, 50%. So if you have super high spam reports, if you're emailing people and they're not opening anything, they're going into spam, it's not great. But generally speaking, if you're a respectable company and if you're sending decent stuff to users and doing well by them, you'll be okay. So just watch those. Of course, these days open rates are a mess because there's software opening things for us all the time, clicking stuff, I think. But still, just watching the trends over time, compare one email or one broadcast to another email or another broadcast, can give you at least a relative picture of how one thing is better than the other. So if you have 12 emails in your onboarding flow, just watch what specific subject lines or what specific emails do feel you feel perform better for you.
Yeah, interesting. I was also thinking about the different buckets. Like we now, or maybe people might assume that sales or acquisition channel is the top email automation that someone should have in place. But there are also other buckets, like, as you said, onboarding, retention, customer success. How do you see these different categories? Where should someone start? And also, how could they expand into different ones? Because probably number one focus for a lot of companies is acquisition or growth. But then if you tend to forget about, the retention, etc., it's pretty useless, because if you're measured on ARR or recurrent revenue and you're not able to sustain that once you acquire new customers, then it's difficult actually to have this sustainable growth. So how do you see in emails these different scopes, and what's like the right sequence or prioritization that a SaaS company should have in place?
I can tell you everybody cares about user onboarding. It's like the universal term. You can like you find a SaaS company, you bet they are gonna care about activation. They poured their like thousands of marketing dollars into getting this person. You surely want to make sure they start paying you. So that part for sure, that's the best thing to start with. And then there are buckets of things along the way, like you said, that you can start caring about when you have more time. And definitely, we recommend probably at least two fundamental workflows to start with. One is user onboarding. Its goal is to take the user from 0 to 1 and to activate them. It can take different shapes for different pricing models, because most SaaS fit into either free trial or freemium, or we call it a funnel model when you don't have either or, and you're either starting to charge people from scratch or you run on credits or some other interesting things. But like there's handful, and people models are pretty typical. User onboarding takes different shapes. Sometimes it means upgrading free users to paid as a nurture campaign. Sometimes it means making sure the trials activate. So it depends on your model. And the second campaign we recommend, campaign or workflow interchangeable,
Mhm.
is so-called customer success workflow or paying customer workflow. Basically, when someone starts to pay, you no longer need to convert them to anything, and you can have a long, slow retention campaign to send to them with lower frequency. I don't know, 1, 2, 3 weeks between emails, and you can educate them about next available advanced features, and I mean evergreen stuff, not your current newsletter. Other advanced features, and then you will have some ideas about loyalty. For example, you can ask them for feedback, you can send them shirts, you can have a referral program. And one recommendation when it comes to like campaign mechanics is not have 20 little triggers for like, oh, I'm sending them a shirt 3 months in. There's no benefit in that. You just have one bigger workflow with a slower delay. And when you have a new idea for your customers, you just plug it in somewhere,
Mhm.
and if the person meets the criteria at that point in time, you can tell them about it. For example, somewhere couple months in, you can offer annual billing to those people who are on monthly plans. But you don't need to have a specific upgrade campaign for that. You just plug it into that big workflow that we just discussed. So one workflow per stage is a good rule of thumb, and then just keep adding more ideas as you have more time and when you need that. And one more is sort of preceding the onboarding in the lifecycle stage is lead nurture and everything you do with people who are not your customers yet. So we also allow you to handle the same people in our software. And when
Mhm.
someone joins your list, when they sign up for a lead magnet or attend one of your events, that's when you can also start nurturing them. We call it an evergreen newsletter. It's
Mhm.
a roster of your most promising content trickled out weekly, bi-weekly to new leads. So you don't have to run the hamster wheel of new content, but they can just get, I don't know, a year's worth of stuff when they join.
Can we 1 second unpack this? Because I believe lots of companies, they struggle with nurturing campaigns. From your experience, what's your ideal flow when it comes to nurturing? What are some best practices and something to definitely avoid when it comes to messaging, to cadence, to call to actions, etc.? Can you tell me a little bit more about this part?
One big mistake is overthinking. There is no correct way, so just do it. And also, I'm not on the radical side of emailing people daily, but like you can definitely send a lot more emails that you're doing now and it'll be okay. And if people don't like them, they can unsubscribe. So it's definitely important to be, legitimate, to have unsubscribe links, have subscription topics, preferences that people can do layered and subscribe from specific things if they want. So send more, experiment with stuff. I do recommend to find your own groove, like have some fun with it for yourself when you're producing things. Bright example. I'm not sure if it's bringing us any business value, but in our lead nurture sequence, you know how movie series Friends, the episodes are named like the one with the dog, the one with the cat, the one with the something. We have that for subject lines, the one with the segments, the one with the discount kind of thing for the lead nurture.
Okay.
It does not make any difference for anybody, I bet, but it just makes fun for us. So if you can figure out some sort of entertainment and gamification for yourself, at least planting those Easter eggs, that could be fun. And one more fundamental principle and a mistake that we see is folks approach email as a creative long form format and they just start stuffing your email with loads and loads of text and content. But email is a very lightweight, granular channel. So we recommend to keep them short and have one clear call to action or clear idea per email. That's actually one of the fundamental ideas behind our atomic emails method, which we put out last year. It's a copywriting framework that is based on this idea that emails are simple in their nature. And then we teach you to use a storyboarding format to put together a good array of such emails.
Do you mind sharing in a nutshell this framework, or what are the key pillars, just to understand? Because one very interesting thing you said is that email can definitely be frequent, it can be short, not necessarily need to pay a lot of attention to design and fancy things. It just needs to be straight to the point with a clear message. Do you have any structured way with this framework that you talked about, or does it also change according to the use cases?
So if someone wants to have a good understanding with pictures and case studies and examples, we have a blog post about atomic emails. We can link to that in your show notes if you want. In a nutshell, it's a method that allows people to break through the creative plateau of like, I need to sit down and write my user onboarding. My goodness, like what do I write? And we have a backwards method and the method is based on our past done for you projects. So that's when we started noticing patterns in our own creative work. As the step one, well, identifying your audience and what they need to do is kind of a prerequisite. But step one is gathering your existing resources, what you have, like the content we discussed, videos, what you have to offer, what they need to know, and then using this and then just going through them and sourcing those atomic email ideas from them into a spreadsheet. So you're not writing anything yet. You're just thinking, oh, this could make an email, this could make an email, this could make an email, and you need a pool of those. I don't know, 20, 30, 40, depends on your business. And then you put it all together in a spreadsheet and start arranging those emails into campaigns that actually make sense. Kind of helps to sit down and do this together for your user onboarding and for your paying customer and some other campaigns, because you can see, oh, this idea makes sense for user onboarding sequence. This idea makes sense for later lifecycle customer. So you just drag them around, kill some of those darlings, and that's the working process for crafting campaigns rooted in real life versus inventing them from thin air, which is never a good idea, like we said before.
That's super interesting. Should people also care about the delivery or the deliverability of those emails? Is it something that's upon the company itself, the vendor they're using? Are there any best practices in order to make sure that all these sequences that you build, they land in the inbox in the right way so that the message is transferred the way it's supposed to be?
Great question. I feel like there's a lot of knowledge gaps. Overall, email service providers are following the same exact practices on making sure the emails hit the inbox.
Mhm.
You, as a user of the email service platform, you should be authenticating your domains and making sure your email is authenticated via those protocols and adding records to the site. So there is a minimum of like 3 things you need to do on the technical side to authenticate your emails with your domain. That's like step 0. From there on, it's all kind of similar in all providers. You as a sender must ensure you do right by that domain with your users, which means specifically not using the same domain for cold email, because that's when you can really ruin and screw your domain reputation. Inboxes monitor spam report rates, like how often people are flagging your emails as bad. And if that's high, you're screwed. Like, go find yourself a new domain. Usually, it's totally fine to use your main domain for product emails and like legitimate marketing emails. If you want to do the best stuff and do like cold outreach, never use your main domain. Use separate software like disposable emails and whatever you want. And largely speaking, think before doing that, because like that industry is not in a good stage right now. It's really overflown. So don't mix cold email with marketing email. Always authenticate correctly. Make sure you give the users a way to unsubscribe. Never just add people out of the blue as a marketing way, because your users need to be hard earned, double opt in via lead magnet or something. So there needs to be a reason. Legally, as a founder of the product, you do have a right to email users to facilitate the product use. So that's
Yeah.
fine. You're in a good area, but still, yeah, be careful with what you're doing.
Is there anything in the content itself of the email that impacts the deliverability? Let's say if you put in links, attachments, etc., are there any best practices there in order to make sure you land in the
To my best
primary
knowledge,
inbox?
attachments are generally not a good practice for email marketing. It's usually replaced by download links. The rest, nothing I'm aware of. And we had some experts come to us and talk about deliverability, still the same. Like, just do good stuff.
I see. All right. I think it's a good time now to move to what you said at the beginning of the conversation about behavior based email marketing. What is it? Let's start from here, actually.
Behavior-based email marketing is marketing automation that is based on the data that comes into our platform, is processed, and then used to trigger those automations, automated campaigns or workflows, however you name them. Those campaigns happen on their own in the evergreen fashion, as opposed to marketing newsletter type of communications when you send out a broadcast blast. That is not automation. That is not behavior based. So the
Yeah.
behavior based means you need to have the data about the behavior, and that data is continuously processed to see if is it matching the trigger. Do we need to send something? That's the idea. So every workflow has a trigger to it, which is a change of this, like a change in the state of the system that needs to happen in order for this thing to go live. That's a given. That's what makes a difference. And when you're sending a marketing newsletter, you're just hitting send yourself or scheduling it.
Can you give a specific example of what's one basic behavioral email marketing that a company should have in place? What's the first one that somebody should think of?
User onboarding again.
Mhm.
Oh, welcome sequence for the new users for sure. We find that the most challenging moment is for marketers is wrapping who are not so technical, wrapping their head about like what is data, what it means to track the data, and how I use this data to put together the triggers, because it's like a really semi-technical industry. So you need to be either somewhat like have a flair of an engineer or have some past experience. So if you are just doing this for the first time, you're going to have a slightly more problematic learning curve, which we're trying to mitigate, of course, with some training. What's interesting is that it's a multi-skill profession. So you need to write emails. And actually, it is a job for multiple people on the team, to be honest. But if you're just trying to do it, there is a creative side, knowing what to send and writing those emails. And then there is a creative side of putting together those flows and automations. And then there is the engineering flared side of putting the data in and making sure the segments operate correctly and the data's clean and stuff like this. So there are multiple things to think about. And whoever comes to us, it's hardly ever they know 100% about everything. Sometimes we have a brilliant technical founder, they have zero problem understanding how the integration works, but then they need a little push on the creative side, and vice versa. Sometimes there's an amazing marketer, but just didn't have enough automation experience. So we are doing our best to bridge the technical gap for them. they're also different.
Yeah, that's great. Can you share more about how you guys are helping companies with the user behavior? What's the process like? And companies that come to you, what are their top challenges, or how do they realize that they cannot independently execute on this type of campaigns on
They
their
can
own?
execute. It's just not gonna be like a full-on proper execution. You're
Mhm.
gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle a little bit. You're gonna hit some limitations. One of the biggest one being that integration needs to happen, so the data needs to start flowing from your product's backend to us. What does that even mean? That's number one. And then the typical behavior would be to go to your engineers and say, "Oh, we need to integrate with Userlist," which means to start sending something. And here's when the lack of the tracking plan really bites you, like really bites you, because the engineer, there's no way on earth they're going to predict all your marketing needs and have a thoughtful tracking schema in place. It's just not their job. They're probably going to do like a good version one, but nothing great. And then you're going to be painfully going back to them, say, "Oh, I need this and that and such." So over the years, we've developed a format for bridging all of this, and we call these road mapping sessions. It's a 60-minute free consulting call that we do with all new customers. Well, free, it's included. We don't charge extra at the moment. We sit down with the marketer, ideally the engineer is also on the call, and we walk through a spreadsheet step by step, making some standard suggestions, but also developing custom properties and events that they need to track. And we also talk about specific segments they need to have and specific conditions for those segments and what kind of email automation makes sense for the business model. So after this call, we try to like check every implementation detail, make sure everybody is aligned on the same page, and they can take this spreadsheet to their engineers and they know exactly what they're getting. So this data integration is going to power their efforts for the next year, 2, 3, without any problem, because we're thinking a little bit ahead and planning up.
Can you give me some example of this data? What kind of information do you need in order to work with them on the email campaigns so that they're effective and they're connected to the product itself?
Sure. So for every account, you need to know like what's their sign up date, what billing plan they're on. Are they billed monthly or annual? One of the most important properties is the billing state, like active, trialing, canceled. So this specific one allows us to bucket them in different life cycle situations. And then there goes information about the feature use. For example, if there's a photo editing app, we want to know how many photos they have inside at the moment.
Yeah.
Photos equals like 100 or something. How many projects or folders they have. Are they using specific features, which could be either Boolean flag or just like some usage information. So when you look at the profile, you know, oh, this is a power user. They have zeros, which means they are not activated yet. And then we use these numbers to build conditions and to build, for example, when someone's albums equal 0, this means essentially they have not started using the albums feature. Therefore, we can plug an email about like, hey, here's how you create an album. So we're using these fields called properties to trigger things and also to filter out, branch out, and do other things. And also there is a timeline of events, which is another way of sending data when you can ask questions like someone did X at least 5 times during the last 3 days. And, this is how you find your active users or inactive users. Because if you just have properties like attributes, you can't ask historic questions, but events allow you to do that. And every business has their own, financial model, like we discussed. And of course, they have their specific features they want to track and specific events. And usually 1 hour is just precisely enough to figure this out together in real time, no prep required. And also as we do this, kind of show around the app a little bit more to make sure they're equipped to move forward. So that's the idea.
That's great. And my understanding is that just after 1 hour, company can also have a deeper understanding about what they have, what they're missing, and how they can, bridge this gap in order to convert the data they have into something meaningful that they can leverage in the future.
Yep. Everybody comes. It's not like people come unprepared. They usually know what they want to say. Maybe they have like campaign drafts, but there is some implementation bits and pieces and how this can work together. And we're just going step by step to make sure they can go from A to B to C smoothly. And we find that very helpful for everybody.
Perfect. So, Jane, we talked about all these different aspects of the email campaigns, from data to behavior to different types of funnel. Is there anything else that's important and that you're supporting the companies to achieve, or are these the core pillars?
Good question. Well, email is a channel that you can use to facilitate your business goals at every stage of the customer lifecycle, from lead to how they become new users and such. So it's just a channel. There is no reason why you shouldn't be using it. It's not a silver bullet for sure, but it's just like basic business hygiene to be messaging your users. It helps you build your brand, helps you show that you care, and I compare this to, and that's what makes it hard to sell. You need a mattress, and it's kind of hard to replace. So usually when you buy a mattress, the next one's going to be in 5-10 years. But a mattress definitely affects your daily quality of life, because you will be like working with this tool, you will be sending emails that will be making you happy or not. So I feel like email automation software is a bit like buying a mattress in that sense. Also, kind of hard to test drive until you got it in your bed, to be honest.
And thank you for reminding me already a couple of times that email is just one of the channels or one of the pillars that can drive the actual revenue growth
Good that you
adoption of
asked.
the company.
Yes, actually, we don't just limit you to emails. We also offer in-app notifications as another channel. So basically, we provide you with very powerful workflows that you can weave your journey with and plug different messages in different channels and actions. Those actions can be custom events that can trigger other integrations and automations, that can be sending in-app notifications in a web app, that can be sending internal emails to your team, such as sales or marketing or sales or customer success to escalate something. Possibilities are endless. Answering your question, what makes us unique is uh, we're a tool built by data nerds in a sense, and just nerds in general. Our logic and possibilities are very high in what you do with filters, conditions, logical loopholes, like all different types of cycles, whatever you want, you can do. So that's when we really shine.
Perfect. Jane, we haven't talked about this, but you have one of the longest running podcasts that I've ever heard of. So you've been for more than 10 years in this industry. And I would be just curious to learn from you. What have you learned from all the people you talked to about SaaS business, about email marketing? If you were to identify top 3 things that's worth highlighting from your podcasting journey, what would that be?
That is hard. What I find most fascinating is the way we recruit guests is usually a couple months in advance. Like there is a queue in recording, in queue in scheduling. So we would pick a topic and agree on something and then record a couple months later. But when the recording day arrives, it's always that the guest brings up something so hot and so valuable for our own business at the moment that it's like serendipity is dropping those guests to inspire just me personally and inform me personally for something that I'm doing. And I have no idea how this works. That probably is the brightest example of what's the Dunning-Kruger effect, or when you're like, when you
Yeah.
start noticing something when it relates to you, maybe that. But it's pretty magical. Usually have a lot of today wisdom from the guest, very timely, even though it's not today that I picked the topic. So I guess that definitely applies. I find it super interesting to, so for the design show called UI Breakfast, I find it very interesting to invite guests from, not from like adjacent industries I have no clue about. And maybe the conversation would be super basic for them, but for the listeners and for me who know nothing about the industry, I don't know, designing packaging for retail stores and how this all works, just how different industries work. I find that super fascinating. And my favorite way of recruiting guests is finding a field, narrow field where they're experts in, and just learning everything I can within the time limit, how this field operates, and to build a bigger picture of the world. I think that's the biggest benefit. You can see
Thank you
this
for
does not
sharing that.
hold any marketing. Like, I didn't even mention the word marketing even once. Like, the marketing value of this is very subtle and very long term, but for me the cognition value is just insane.
Yeah. So most people, or I think 99% of podcasts, they quit after less than 10 episodes. And you've been going on for more than 10 years. What made you continue through, all these probably ups and downs, highs and lows, and also changing landscapes? What made you continue with that consistency?
Just make systems that make it easy to continue and very hard not to. Basically, about 3 or 4 years in, I got my first assistant to help with the production. Um, and that's when you have another person in play, that you have mutual responsibilities, you have the rhythm, the cycle, you pay them, and it's just a little production company in itself. Don't dare to say it's a company, but it's just a production process, production flow. So just keep that queue. One thing I found is that just going through the queue as a flow is easier for me than starting and stopping seasons, because shaping seasons, trying to find common themes in a lineup and recruiting everyone in time makes it harder to manage than just like a ever-going stack and a queue of guests. I find that's easier to just keep going than to start and stop.
Perfect. Jane, I think we're getting to the end. Just before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where can people learn more about Userlist and all the other great things that you're doing?
Sure, if you want to go learn about email marketing automation, please head over to userlist.com. We have a fabulous expert blog there. You're going to enjoy your time there. And if you want to have, look at my personal page, it's uibreakfast.com, and it's also the place for the podcast you describe. And by the way, I run two shows with the team. One is UI Breakfast, and another is Userlist show called Better Done Than Perfect. I think cumulatively it's about 400, 500 episodes over the last 10 years. It's pretty fascinating to me as well.
Impressive. Jane, thank you so much for being with me today. It was great meeting you, talking with you about all the topics that we covered. So once again, it was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.